Alright, so here's some pretty crazy hypothesis and just theory I've been trying to crunch. In alchemy, I've figured out that there are these paths, and really the paths are just like regional or group experimentations that different groups and regions would do to reach the end goal of the Philosopher's Stone. And it brings up a lot of interesting ideas. If there are multiple ways to get to the Philosopher's Stone, then it means something. It means that it's not just made from one substance. All the one substance can be gotten from many different things. Now, is that true? I don't know. I haven't tried it enough. I haven't figured it out, got to that point. But it's an interesting question. Of course, the paths. Firstly, there's the cinnabar path, which is using cinnabar, mercury sulfate ore, which is very popular around France, I believe. France and Spain, Spain has a great cinnabar ore, apparently. And there's also the antimony path, which is popular again around Europe. And supposedly the acetate path, which is using lead ore, galena, was also popular around more ancient times. And then, you have your urine path, of course, which is relying on, I guess, like nitrogen, because there's also a path of the dew in the air, where you collect the dew, and the dew is full of, I think, potassium nitrate salts, essentially, from the air. And this is then, used with, I believe, a hydroxide salt. Again, hydroxide is another one. And these are all paths that you can take. And then if these are paths, assumably there are more paths than that. Because again, the old alchemists were just doing what they could do, using what they had. Again, mineral acids and organic solvents and all these new things that have arisen, in industrial levels. Of course, I think they probably were experimenting with mineral solvents, many years ago. Who knows, but just on the industrial scale we have, so there's probably so many different ways to reach this thing. And I'll talk about what this thing could be. So I've been looking into the acetate path. There's this guy on YouTube called Rubaphilos salfluøre, and salfluøre is like Salfluere. I think it's a French word. Rubaphilos is Rubaphilos, like philosopher. He goes into the acetate path in his videos, and to summarize it, it is just to firstly make a bunch of lead acetate, like a lot of it, an obscene amount. I'm talking like hundreds of grams of this stuff. Then to dry distill it. And anyone who's looked into this kind of stuff before knows that's how they can make acetone. When you dry distill the lead acetate, you first get acetone, which is its volatile spirit. It is, the mercury compound. Then the sulfur compound, the oil, is a resinous oil that comes off. Apparently these are like phenol compounds. I don't fully understand it. Anyway, so then you have an amber liquid, which is full of the acetone and the oils. And what happens is that you fractionally distill this into 4 parts, or technically 3 parts, and you leave one in the receiving flask, I would imagine. And it is, firstly, the acetone comes off, being the air element. Secondly, the water element comes off, being just common water. Thirdly, what comes off is a volatile oil, being the fire compound, I believe. And lastly, the earth compound is a fixed oil, resinous oil in the receiver, which I don't think you distill off, I'm not sure. So we can then see the 4 elements coming from, the one matter, the prime matter, right? And of course, we have the fixed the fixed liquid, which is the water, the volatile liquid being the acetone, the volatile oil being the volatile oil, the fixed oil being the resinous oil. These are the fixed and volatile components. But what about the fixed and the volatile salt, I thought? Well, left in the original flask, which was dry distilled, you should have some kind of carbonous lead material, right? The corpse of the lead. And if you calcinate that, just the same way that we calcinate the plant material, and you remove all the carbon and get it into the ashes, these ashes would technically be the fixed salt. So the oxide of the lead would be a fixed salt. Then when you recombine the four things you fractionally distilled together, and I think you heat them together and kind of like, combine it and such, supposedly this creates the philosophical mercury, which is like the super special ultimate ultra solvent, which I would imagine would be some kind of red material. Basically, I guess it's like the philosopher's stone, which then brings into question, if all of these paths can make a philosopher's stone, then the philosopher's stone assumably would be this philosophical mercury, aka the combination of fixed and volatile oil and liquid, which apparently when you heat and distill over, comes over as a singular substance. It's described as a liquid crystal. It's a volatile, oily, solid, resinous, I guess, compound. Pretty strange sounding, but it's like this strange material. Now, is that the quintessence? Maybe, I don't know. Supposedly, it's like if you look into like the Golden Chain of Homer, the idea of the chaos and the original state, the original matter. A lot of this stuff relates heavily to that somehow. I don't fully understand it. As I said, the guy that I watched this from explains it a lot better. I can kind of grasp very archetypally and very primordially. Really what I saw is that this is like the higher component. It's like if you've seen the tree of life or the chakras or something. This special solvent which you use then to dissolve metal oxides. As I said, it's not just the lead oxide anymore. You can use it for any oxide. And supposedly when you dissolve the oxide, or I think he said the salt, I'm not, maybe it's chloride salt, I think it's the oxide salt, I made the fixed salt, I would imagine so, right? Supposedly that creates the seed of metal, which then is used to essentially germinate metal. And you could think, well, everything has a seed. Plants have a seed, animals have a seed. It's a level of reality. You would assume then the metal has a seed, and the metal seed, what state would it be in? Because we haven't mentioned the volatile salt. Would the metal seed be a volatile salt of a metal, meaning a literal crystalline state of metal that is distillable? Because if you distill a iron chloride, it fractionally distills into the chlorine and the water, and then you get the iron oxide, I guess, at the end, which is not exactly what we want. We want something that fractionally would distill over into a receiver, which is a volatile salt. This is what I presume, unless I am looking too into it and it's all of these combined into a singular substance. So take a step back, it could potentially be that, but again, this video is hypothesizing, so that's kind of what we're doing right now. Assumably the metals give off a volatile salt, maybe underground, and then those volatile salts travel across water and air streams and such, and then they inoculate like a mold or a fungus. Really, it's like a mushroom spore is kind of what I'm seeing. A spore of a mushroom is, I guess, its seed, you would say. It inoculates the earth and then more mushrooms form. Or maybe the metal, this volatile salt, or whatever its seed is, it essentially inoculates the earth and creates and generates and grows more metal out of water and heat and dirt and I don't know, whatever metals eat, I guess. And they grow from different metals, I don't know. But then if we question this a little more, it made me think about ormus or monoatomic substances. A monoatomic metal which is like a white powder. If you get a metallic ormatic state, it is a white powder, like a whitish powder. It can be different colored, but it's usually like a whitish of like a red or a whitish of a blue or something like that, right? Depending on the whitish of a yellow, or depending on the metal, right? Is the ormus the seed? Because if that is true, we should be able to put it in wax and then throw it in molten lead and create whatever metal. And you could try this with a copper to make it easy, because copper is, an orangey colored metal, right? So if you put that in lead, you'd know right away. Is that the seed of metal, the ormus? Like, is that where we get into? Is that how ormus branches into alchemy? Because it's kind of like you've got the people who are really into the ormus stuff, and then you've got the people who are really into the regular old school stuff, and it's like, where we can't deny that the ormus stuff is real. Like, you can do the experiment and make it. It's a thing, but is that, like, it has to fit in somewhere? Is that what it is? Is that is it the volatile salt? I don't really know. Or can you make it from that? Reason being, of course, is that when I made a video ages ago, how to make colloidal metals, and the process was that I could get from it is essentially I used hydrochloric and hydrogen peroxide to dissolve metals, and you want to get them into like a really, subtle state, right? Really well dissolved state, and then you just add sodium hydroxide, which sodium hydroxide is a volatile salt. Like makes like. I thought, using a volatile salt to make a volatile component. That's interesting. In the cinnabar path, supposedly they use a bunch of hydroxide. I can't seem to get that working, but I don't know. Maybe if you mix the mercury and the sulfur and the hydroxide, maybe something would happen, right? I don't know. And so then you create this whitish powder from that. Now, is that just a hydroxide powder of whatever metal you're working with? It might be. It might just be hydroxide powder. But is a hydroxide powder a volatile salt substance the same way that a hydroxide is a volatile salt substance? Like creates like. I don't know. It just seems too simple. To me, it just seems too simple, which is why I'm kind of ruling it out. But it's worth a test, I guess. Again, if you can't throw it into the molten lead, cover it with wax and throw it into lead, and it transmutes, it doesn't work. Like that's ruling it out. We have ways to rule it out to know whether it's true. So I just have to do the experiment. But hopefully this brings a lot of ideas into your mind. The idea that, maybe the philosopher's stone is this solvent in order to dissolve the metal oxide. Basically, it's like resurrecting. I had the idea of like the resurrecting the dead metal essentially into this alive form. And it's like the coagulation of all the metallic life forces in order to, turn it into this living state again. And then the stone acts almost like nutrition or something to nurture it in a way. That's how I thought about it. But I don't know. Maybe this is giving you some ideas. Anyway, of course, have a good day. Check the links in the description of social commercial stuff if you want, and goodbye.
Hello, this is me from the future. Okay, so the whole point of the video isn't, almost or anything like that, but it kind of is too, I don't know, I've really got to test some things in the lab now about this whole thing. The whole idea of it being a volatile salt, the seed of metal, is potential. Either, number one, it's a volatile salt, because isn't that kind of weird? Like, you have a metal, non-metallic metal, but it's in a state where you can literally, like, it's a physical substance and you can just heat it and distill that physical substance. That's kind of profound and weird. You better test that out, right? Or number two, it's the combination of all of these elements, and all these elements, the same way as that I said that the when you distill the lead acetate and you get the 4 elements from it, and then you fractionally distill those 4 elements, and then you add them all back together, that apparently it forms a singular substance, which is assumably, is that the quintessence? Is that the whatever they call it, the philosophical mercury? Does that then form a singular substance with the metal oxide? Again, I don't know. I have to test it out. Whether it's a singular substance or whether it's, again, the volatile salt. But it kind of brings into questions of, like, is the alkaloid of a substance the volatile salt? Were alchemists getting, like, really fucked up off alkaloids the same way people take acid and do that? Because they talk about, they essentially talk about this stuff in the same way that people talk about like a psychedelic experience, experiencing the past, the future, infinity, essentially being taken into like a God state, whatever. The point of this extra clip is to tell you that one of the things that I want you to think about is that all roads lead to Rome. There's probably a bunch of different ways to do this. Chemistry is the art of chemicals. It's people who are fascinated and fixated on chemicals. If you watch videos on chemistry, it looks like literal witchcraft. It's kind of insane. I can understand like half of it. When you start understanding like words like ester and like crystallization and I don't know, whatever, crazy stuff they go on about, right? It's like, but alchemy is the process of nature. It's like perfecting things, it's like chemistry is like an offshoot of alchemy, right? So we're not fixated on chemicals or chemistry, but chemicals and chemistry is like, because that's advanced. It's a bit like you have a car. Imagine your car's wheels and suspension has advanced, right? Or its motor has advanced. Like that, the motor isn't just the car, but it is a driving force, the car. I've always had this idea that like alchemists of the future will be using microwaves is the best way to put it. There's already experiments where you can like heat up silicon glass in like microwaves and make gold out of it. And I'm wondering, is that because of the mono, they say it's like the monoatomics in gold, or the silicon, like the glass attracts monoatomics, and there's all that stuff with like the seawater, and it's like, wouldn't that technically mean they're in like a volatile salt stage? It's all too like, it's all putting a lot of pieces together. But getting back to the main point that I wanted to add in this little extra clip is that don't reject modern inventions and modern advancements. I don't know about you, but like trying to produce like crap loads of lead acetate is a pain in the ass. A lot of us aren't really going to have the money, the materials, the time, the skill, the know-how to, mine like tens of kilograms of galena ore and like, process it all into crystals and all these like lead crystals. It's like, it's kind of unrealistic. So we have to really, the way that I see it is that we should be figuring out a modern way. As I said, the alchemist of the future uses a microwave and stuff that they bought off like the internet, that's or from like the hardware store or something. You probably, if you knew how to do it, you could do these old processes with hardware store, supermarket, basic, legal chemistry store, chemicals and equipment. We have to start using our modern things, to get us to where we can do this. Because I think you can probably do this process in like a day, in like a couple hours maybe, through modern technology. Like it just speeds everything up. And the idea on that is you need to understand what's really going on. What is philosophical mercury? Can you make it out of different substances? Can you make it out of plants? Can you make it out of animal products? Does it have to be made only out of minerals? Do you have to make it out of dew? Do you have to make it out of cinnabar or lead? Or what is the mechanics of this substance? And then once you figure that out, you figure out what is the mechanics of what is it doing to the gold? Why does it then produce the seed of gold? How do I produce the seed of gold without that? And then we look at things like, Paracelsus said alkahest is essentially alcohol and potassium hydroxide. Technically, he said potassium carbonate and calcium oxide, which then makes potassium hydroxide. It's like, is alkahest the philosophical mercury, or does it need that oil component? Can I add, if you add sulfur and hydroxide together, you get that red oil. Somehow is that profound? Can that act as a philosophical mercury for to extract the seed of metals? Like, we have to be asking these questions. There are different ways to do this, and I want to know the quickest, easiest way so that I can tell everyone, so that you can all do it yourselves, so that we can figure this out and just have it as a chapter of life over and done with and move on to other things. You know, we can all know this stuff and it's easy and it's good, and we can, because there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more to life than just the philosopher's stone. There's a lot more to alchemy. You know, we haven't even gotten into things like homunculus. We haven't even gotten into things like the generation of life from you know, the chaos, the goo, or the chaos, basically that slime that forms from rainwater. And these are all these interesting things. It's like, you know, we have to, and then how do we simplify that and let, you know, anyone who wants to try it do it. So, you know, we can all see this stuff and experience it and understand life. Anyway, that's about enough.